Ask Jeff that question though.
Great, please.
Clear direction of the council. That was one of the
Yeah, it's number 2021-12.
Yeah, that one is Steve Trachtenberg's. That's still it's in a company name. It's an LLC instead, if I understand correctly.
Because it just says LLC owner.
Well, but we should have put the name of the LLC in it.
That's what I'm thinking. The other names are all there. Why that one wasn't?
Ask Jeff that question if you would, please. Make sure that we during the public hearing so we get it right.
There we go.
Well, I don't know.
Around.
I don't know if
He walked in a second ago.
The abatement.
That was the title owner of that tract, that parcel.
Well, it didn't say. That's why I was just asking who's that LLC.
It just says LLC
That's the
owner.
name of the LLC that owns the parcel.
LLC owner?
Yep.
I didn't.
That's weird.
It's 21-12.
Well, I don't.
It is, yes.
Where's Nias? It's 269 4th Street LLC.
Oh, it's 269 4th Street LLC. That's the name of it.
That's one of the, okay.
Yeah, and that's pretty common with a lot of developers. They'll use the address of the property as the LLC name.
So what it was, is there's a bunch of LLCs for
Yeah.
different properties, it's for liability purposes. So yeah,
This, I think, has the
I think it owns 5, 6 properties,
Yep.
each titled in the LLC name, and they're all owned by his umbrella company.
Yeah. That way, if one of his LLCs gets in trouble, you can't lose the entire thing with you.
I guess I just had never. I'm used to there's an LLC and then they have the properties underneath that
The
LLC.
umbrella company owns a bunch of subsidiaries.
Yeah.
Well, that answers my question.
It's confusing though, because it looks like it's the address and then it says LLC.
Yeah.
But that's the name of the LLC, yeah.
Who's the LLC?
Now, how do I get back?
For what?
How do I get back on my?
It's in the drawer.
Oh, that's right.
People moving stuff around on me.
Is that the right? Is it?
Should be.
It's always right there, Diane. Hasn't been moved.
Yeah, I just asked Jerry when, but she wouldn't tell me.
If I could control the state and the Department of Health,
Jerry, trust me, you could control it. They just haven't turned you loose yet.
Jerry, Dave can give him all kinds of shots.
yeah.
Don't like Jello though.
How about pudding?
I like chocolate pudding, butterscotch, vanilla. Put a little ice cream in it. Ooh.
Can't say I've ever done that.
Tick, tick, tick.
Don't go by that clock.
My wife trained me well.
You're going old school on the binder there, Seth.
What are you doing anyway?
I used to use those binders about 18 years ago. You don't have to apologize. It works for you. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Actually, hang on, you know.
I know, it's like here.
I think the binder
Well, should I
people
put my
are
arms on?
their products in decline now. We used to have so many binders.
So you can leave your
It's 6:30, Pam.
It's slow,
Yeah, we can start.
according to that. Oh, you guys have to train me better.
Yes, we do.
We'll call to order the Tracy City Council meeting for Monday, January 25th, 2021. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nobody's praying for us tonight.
Shane?
We can go right into the approval of the agenda. Do we have any cancellations or?
We do, Mayor. We have an item to add under 9A4, Resolution 2020-17, which is a pay app to Dunick. It'll be the final pay app for Phase 3A1. We just received the information, and so we didn't get a chance to get it in your packet on Friday. But it's pretty straightforward. It's the same kind of thing that you have always passed in the past.
Okay, with that addition, do we have
Motion to approve is amended.
Okay.
first and second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Well, it's too soon for the public hearing. Can we go into public comments? Shirley?
Okay, my name is Shirley Anderson, 701 Randall Street, and I live in Tracy. And I'm referring to last council meeting. It was suggested that one of the options for the seniors would be the basement of the library. And my thought is, and several other people have stated this, if we didn't want to go upstairs at the VMC, why would we want to go downstairs at the library? The seniors want a ground floor, even temporary location. Okay? And one other thing I want to suggest is we had started to form a senior committee with just seniors for a senior center. And I think we'd be a lot further along in the process if we would have kept that committee. So I don't know what the council thinks about that, but I think it should be formed, and with the approval of the council, that's where we should go. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Moving along, can we do the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar without breakthrough beverage payment.
I'll second that.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll make a motion to approve accounts payable with breakthrough beverage.
I'll second that.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I don't think there's anything for Sanford. Was there in there?
There was.
No.
Was
There was, I looked. Yep, there was.
Motion to approve payment for Sanford Medical Center.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do we have any mayor council communication? If there was something.
Do we want to at least outwardly say about the public hearing on the 22nd for people out? You know, that was part of the consent calendar, number D.
Would you like me to talk about what that is,
No,
Councilmember?
playground.
I think
Yeah.
so. So people.
I could certainly do that. So it's been talked about a little bit in terms of the budget, but we have we received a donation. You might recall there was a resolution. We received a donation last fall, and we decided to move forward with a grant request at the Department of Natural Resources for some new playground equipment at Central Park. And that grant application is due by the end of March. But one of the requirements that before we do that grant application is to have a public input process. And so one of the things that they suggest is a public hearing. We don't have to do that only. We can do some other things like we could have a community meeting, or we could publish something in the paper about it. All different kinds of things. But a public meeting will certainly suffice. And so basically what we'll do so this is, the action tonight is just to put that on the agenda for the 22nd ultimately. And we'll have a public hearing that night where we'll kind of outline what we're going to do with the park and the grant requests that we're going to go after and things like that. So that's what this is about. The public should know that you've made it a priority this year to replace some of the equipment at Central Park that's been around for gosh, I think probably 40 years or more in some cases. And then that's part of our capital improvement program for 2021. So that's what this public hearing is about.
Okay, thank you.
And the 22nd of February is when you're going to have a plan?
Yeah, we've gotten 2 proposals from 2 different companies, and there's a couple of plans, that we've been reviewing, and we have a budget of about $60,000 for it. But ultimately, what I'm going to be asking you to do is kind of choose, which one you want to go to, because when we do that grant request, we need to submit all the plans along with it, so they know exactly what it is that we're doing. They're fairly similar in what we can do, but there'll be some different choices. So that's what you'll do on the 22nd ultimately. A lot more fun than some of the things that we do sometimes.
Do we have, I thought I saw something in here for the mayor council communication.
That's number 7. Should be on there.
No, I know, but I thought I saw something back in there about something that was doing it. Is there not anything?
There's nothing specifically on the agenda. If any of you would like to make any comments or address anything, you certainly can do that.
Anybody have anything?
I guess the only thing I have, Eric will probably touch on it later on in our meeting here, is the different proposals that we have for the senior center, but I think you'll be touching on that.
We will. Yep.
Okay. Just, Jason, you want to do your department?
I really don't have anything to add to the report that I presented you. The annual numbers are there to look at if you want, and other than that, it's just business as usual right now.
Are you having much trouble for the city boys to plow the streets? Are the people kind of understanding what needs to be done now to get their cars off? Or
It's been better.
okay,
We actually had the first snow event, and I can never remember where we didn't issue a citation, so that was good.
good.
Jason, how old is the oldest cop car?
The oldest one that we have now,
The SUV.
it's a 2017.
So when does that get replaced again? Shortly? Or?
We will be we'll be ordering it at the end of this year for next year's budget.
How many miles about will be on it then?
At the end of this year?
Approximately, yeah. How many put on a year? 50, 40, 80,
Oh no, probably about 30.
30?
So it's at, I think it was at like 88 this morning, so 88,000.
So just tick over 100 a little bit.
Yeah, it should be just a little over 100. Yeah, the Ford Explorers of that era have been, I've been kind of watching what they've been doing for trade-in value, and they've been holding their value pretty well. So I'm expecting to see a good trade-in value for that squad when we're done.
Jason, are you going to hear to report on your annual incident report also right now, or?
If you have any questions about it.
Yeah, I was just wondering, the pandemic of this last year, how has that affected your reports and your police activity, would you say?
I guess I printed the report out. It was so close to the year before, there was only 85 calls difference, and I tried to look at it real quick to see if there was a major difference between the two, but everything varied by 5 calls here or 10 calls there. There really wasn't. I mean, it kind of balanced out this way and that way.
The fact that you didn't have Oxnard days this year,
Right.
Didn't have some of the bars and restaurants or periods they weren't open.
Exactly. That would be some of the things that probably that where the 85 calls would have came into play. We probably would have ended up probably being busier if more people are out at night.
Sure.
type of thing, and out on the streets at night. You know, with the bars being closed, you don't have that traffic. With the restaurants being closed, you don't have that traffic also. Boxcar days is usually anywhere from 20 to 30 calls just in that weekend for public service type stuff. People lock their keys in their cars, their kids get lost downtown, so that weekend alone probably would have made up for probably 30 calls that night.
How about, do your officers encounter, I don't know, more families under stress with COVID and so forth? I mean, has that affected any of your work?
Yeah, there's been a lot more family matters. There's been a lot more child neglect and type investigations during the day for me, where it's a lot more welfare checks, because for us, I think, because family members aren't being able to reach somebody, and so they don't feel comfortable going over and checking on them, so they're calling us, and some of the times it's just, families are tired of the Zoom and the calls, and they just, they take a break from answering people for a little while, and then other people get panicky and call us for welfare checks. So there's been a bunch more of that.
There's a service that your office handles where they call elderly in the morning.
Yep. Our Elder Watch program.
Yeah. How do people know how to get on that, so to speak? I mean, some that have been on it for a long time, they get called, but say you got a new elderly person moved to town like me, how do I get on it? Which I'm just asking.
You contact the police department anytime. Contact the police department at any time. Janelle works 8 to noon every Monday through Friday.
Just call her.
Yep, call the office, and if she doesn't happen to be in the office, the officers will take the call. It's just basically a form that we have people fill out for information.
Do you have to come in and sign it, or just go over the phone?
Nope. We'll bring it to your door if you want. So.
Jason, do we have a dog pound now?
Right now, I do not.
Okay.
Right now, I have a short list of people who will temporarily foster one if we can't figure out who the owners for the dog are. We do not have a physical pound on city property of any sort. So.
Didn't that one time we have it at the airport? Wasn't there a dog?
Years ago, yes.
Okay. And that didn't work out then?
It was before my time.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you. I know that I heard stories of it being a hassle at some point in time, especially with snow and snow issues. Shane and I discussed putting it out behind his shop, but the snow drifts in there so deep during the winter time that we wouldn't be able to get access to it. So.
Jason, I see you have a few people every year listed under the assist, I don't know, gas money or meal money or something for someone coming through.
Yep.
Is that money come from the Salvation Army, or is that, does your department get some money from the Salvation Army?
Yeah, it's on a voucher program, and so the Salvation Army has, they have a pamphlet with vouchers in it, and certain vendors in town will take a Salvation Army voucher in lieu of cash, so that we can put them up at the hotel if they need shelter, or we can get them gas at Casey's if they need gas to continue on. They have to meet some of the Salvation Army's requirements. But any other questions?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.
We'll have the public hearing now. Anybody here from the public that wants to talk about the abatements?
Mayor, I think Jeff Carpenter would like to make a presentation as to what this item is about. I'm just going to set it up by saying that this is the kind of we're probably going to have more as they come on, but But ultimately, we have some requirements that we're trying to meet. Even though a lot of these things have already been approved by the EDA, you also have to approve them. And Jeff Carpenter is going to make a presentation as to what all these items are.
All right.
Okay. One of the things I want to talk about tonight is with the tax abatement for one of the council goals of this past year, and then for the next 5 or 6 years, has been some kind of growth with housing. And we set anywhere from 2 single-family households to 5 single-family households is what we're really looking for. And I can tell you, with some of the abatements that we've talked about so far, with some of the new housing that we put in, there was a tipping point, and there is even right now a tipping point of being able to offer that tax abatement and then getting somebody to build something. It is that that $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 over the next 3 years is what I try to keep it to right there, and it actually pushes people and say, okay, with that, I'm willing to build something. With the broad acres out there, as exactly the situation we ran into, and I can tell you at least one of those out there right now was because of the tax abatement that the city was able to offer. With the council communication that you have in front of you, I just want to go over it. Like Eric said, we've had this before. We've talked about it. Eric just wanted it put into writing, which is the right thing to do. It was, I can tell you, in the past, it was something that come up from the EDA. You put the rules in place, but there really hasn't been any resolutions that go along with it. So that's why we had Matt working with us, and that's why we're putting it together. When you look at the budget implications there, I want to talk about real quick. When Eric and I did the original budget, we started doing the budget, or Eric started doing the budget back in September, and we had actually put about $46,000 into this line item, I'm going to call it. And then when we did the final numbers, it actually went down by $10,000 because we had forgotten, or I had forgotten, that the one of the fourplexes that we had sold as a city was actually off, as of 2020, was off the tax abatement rolls. So that's what you're going to see here tonight. So really, when it comes down to implications, there's going to be no more money added because we're putting the resolutions in tonight. We've already budgeted for that amount. So the recommendations for me is, I can tell you that it's working, and it actually is easy for me to go and talk to somebody, especially when they're going to building, whether it's commercial or whether it's residential. One of the things I do want to make sure that you know, that for us to have for anybody to get a county tax abatement, because Lyon County has a tax abatement program, but before they can get a Lyon County tax abatement program or get involved in it, you have to have a city abatement program, and that's why we have it for city, because we're not prejudiced, and if somebody wants to build on a new construction onto like we did across the street here, or if it's new housing, or if it's on Highway 14, it's just another way of selling what we've got to offer here in the city of Tracy. So in a nutshell, that's what it is. I do want to tell you, and this is more for Eric here, the resolutions A and B, and it was my mistake. I read through them quite well, but they are 5th Street, not 3rd Street on there. So that's my fault on there. Any questions from you on the abatement program? I'll be able to, when we go through the resolutions, if you want to know a little bit more about that one. I can't give you exact numbers, but I could get those for you if you need. I can give you a pretty good estimate, though, on all of them.
So the philosophy, Jeff, is that without these abatements, many of these projects wouldn't have happened.
Right. I don't go in, Seth, I don't go into the situation and say, hey, build this or you're going to get an abatement. I go, hey, this is I'm going to give you a good place to, the broad acres, we get a good place to build some houses. We're looking at other places in town that we can put some houses in, and then you start getting into it, and then you start helping them with their not the construction, but the design of their house, and then that tipping point when, they say, well, we're just not sure that's a lot of money, because it is. It's a lot of money. Then you can throw that in at the end, and it kind of pushes people over the edge a little bit. And I have one right now that is very close to one of the ones that's available out at Broad Acres, and that's right now, it's kind of pushed them over the edge because now they're starting to talk about down payments.
want to add a couple things if it's okay, Mayor. There's a few things that you should know about this. The first one is that Minnesota law actually prescribes some very specific reasons why you can give tax abatements. Things like, does it increase employment? Does it help redevelop, blighted areas? Things like that. And your policy that you adopted last year, which is our tax abatement policy, is following all these state laws, and everything you see on this list is following that policy. So by law, you have to approve every single abatement as it comes through. But what you should know is that everything is essentially falling in line with what we already do in the first place. The third thing that I want you to know specifically about this is that in the past, we haven't necessarily budgeted for these items. We budgeted for these items specifically in 2021. And so, and what the taxpayer should know about this is that this tax abatement is not coming out of the general fund. It's ultimately coming out of the Economic Development Authority Fund. And what that means is that some people might say, well, you're giving away a tax abatement, you're taking it from me and give it to some rich guy who's building a house or something. In reality, that's not what's happening here. All your tax dollars are going where they're supposed to be going in the general services to provide services to you as a citizen, and this is coming out of our Economic Development Incentive Fund, essentially. And so we believe that in the long run, by doing these kinds of things, that it's going to increase the tax base and ultimately benefit the taxpayers. And so that's why you do tax abatements like that. I just wanted to make sure you understood and that we got it on the record, just in terms of what we're really doing is following the state law and the procedure for doing this here tonight.
Could I add one more thing to that, Eric?
Sure.
And I want you to look out always 3 years, and I've talked about that for 3 years since I've been here. What's going to go on in 3 years? What's going to go on in 5 years? And this is going to be gradual because some of them will come off the abatement program quicker than other ones. In fact, one of them that's not listed here, Eric and I had discussed about it, it was done as of 2020. So right there, we've got $10,000 added to the tax base that's going to be paid into the city taxes. And in 3 years out, and I'm just going to use the 3 years from right now, you're looking at $50,000 more in taxes being paid on property taxes, just on what we've done right here. So if we can continue to do this over the next 5-10 years or whatever, and then you keep building, it just snowballs. It's just a snowball effect. And that's what I want you to look at, over the next, 5 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be. You got to look down the road a little ways. Does it hurt not in getting this money? But I'm going to tell you that there wasn't we were not positive we would have gotten this money unless we'd have offered it.
And the current program then is, if you build a new house in Tracy, you can apply for is it 5 years tax abatement on the city portion of the property tax. Is that correct? It
gives us a little flexibility, Seth, but I've been trying to, everything we have right now is set up on 3 years for the new one. The EDA had set up before I had gotten here, and it was, they had a 5-year one, and that would have been on the fifth, I'm sorry, yes, the Fifth Street apartments over here that have two years left on them. That was written right into the contract, and so I can't say that it's just 3 years. Yes, it's written in as 5 years at 100%. That was something that I had asked for and what we got to change through Matt. I didn't like the 100% 1 year, 80% the next year, 60% the next year. It's give them a certain amount of years, 100% city tax, and then you're done with it. And then we stay away from the county, we stay away from the schools.
And the property owner, they pay 100% of the school tax and the county tax.
Yes, and they pay 100% of this, and then we reimburse them. That's the way we got the program set up, Seth, is that we will turn around and give that check back to them so they can feel something in their hands when I either hand it to them or we send it to them in the mail.
Well, I personally think it's a really good program because it helps compensate for some of the other headwinds that Tracy has to work against for new construction, namely our relatively high property tax levy. So I'm glad we're having some results.
Well, my goal would be in 5 years from now we got another 50,000, and the 5 years after that we got another 50,000. Then the 5 years after that you can worry about somebody else standing up here talking.
Are you sure?
And Jeff, there's one additional property, correct, that needs another resolution that will be added at another date, correct?
Yeah, probably one of the ones that's being lived on in Broad Acres right now hasn't hit the assessments at the county level yet. Even though it has been assessed, it didn't hit the paperwork or the money. So there's another one that's sitting out there. And none of the assessments will, even if we move in somebody in the next couple of months into one of them that is empty or available right now, that won't take effect until 22 and 23 and 24. And again, I think that hopefully that answers your question. I tried to be, I don't know if we use the word consistent or not, but I try to keep all those at 3 years.
Is that a negotiable deal or not?
I don't negotiate very well.
Okay,
Well, I do negotiate pretty well. That's the problem.
Yes, it is.
okay.
Yeah.
But you're saying that with the 3 years, it's 100%. 5 years, it could be the 180, 60.
If we ever give 5 years out, it would be at 100%. Where our rules say that it's 5 years maximum for 100% of the city taxes. It's right now, that's what I put the program together, it's anywhere from 1 to 5, and I've been using 3, and I think that's a good number. That gets you 3 years into the new house, and I think that's plenty.
Councilmember Landit, the council passed, before you were on city council, and actually for most of you were on city council back in March, I think it's probably the second meeting that I attended as a city administrator. The council at that time adopted a policy outlining specifically how long that was going to be. And yeah, I mean, I think it's negotiable to the extent that it could be less, but it's a maximum of 5 years and 100%. State law allows you to go up to 15 years. We think that's probably too long, which is why you're at 5 here. But ultimately, that's just a little bit of history for folks that weren't here at that time.
My question is, you kind of sticking to the 3 years, but if somebody says, well, I want 5 years, can you cut that back to 75% or 50% or something?
We'd have to change the policy then.
Oh, yeah, the whole policy, not
Yeah.
just for that.
Yeah.
I think that you probably could do that by resolution, because ultimately you have a policy, and that creates a guide for how we do these things. It becomes a negotiation, and then every tax abatement will have to come back to the city council for approval. And so you could have that discussion at that point, but as Jeff said, we try to keep it to 3 years.
And that makes sense. I was just curious.
Any other questions?
One other consideration on that is that if you're consistent with it like Jeff is doing, then nobody's going to say, gee, how come he got this and I didn't? I mean, I think that there's good reason to do that. And so if you're going to jump outside the policy in some way, or if you're going to give somebody more, there better be a pretty darn good reason for it.
Yeah. And like I said, A and B there are the 5th Street. And I apologize for that. I read it, and then I just...
It's correct in the resolution, though. Okay.
Yes.
It's just on the agenda that it's wrong.
And there's 2 of them there on 5th Street because there's a 4-plex on each side of the street.
There's 2 different residence numbers on one parcel.
Yeah.
In the resolution for the second resolution, shouldn't that actually technically be 3rd Street East?
No, these are both 5th Street here. The 3rd Street ones, the 3rd Street East,
Yeah.
that actually was done as of this past year, so it's gone. And Eric and I talked about that. He said, "Are you sure we shouldn't throw together something for what's already been done in the past?"
Diane checked, I believe that the council passed resolutions for those parcels back in 2018.
They did.
So those have been properly passed, and now that they've expired, they're done, so they'll come on the tax roll, and the city will receive their portions of the taxes now. But that was properly handled previously.
And again, George, you talked about negotiating with it. The buyers negotiated a 5-year on the 5th Street ones, and then I negotiated just a 2-year on the 3rd Street ones.
There's some flexibility then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did you guys have anything that you want to do as for the public hearing that was at 6:45? Okay. Just want to make sure.
Thank you, though. All right.
And you want us to do each one of them separate, right?
I think you need to do each one of these separately, yes. And if there's any questions you've got with those, you can also, it's all going to be public record, you can also send me an email and I can send you exactly what the amounts are. I didn't want to muddy up the waters too much by talking too much up here, and I already probably talked too much.
Do we have a motion for resolution 2021-8?
Yep, I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2021-8.
Second.
First and second, roll call on these?
Tao,
Aye.
Landite,
Aye.
Koopman,
Aye.
Teagues,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Aye.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2021-9, the tax abatement on 466 and 472 Fifth Street.
Second.
First and second, roll call?
Teagues,
Aye.
Koopman,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Landite,
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Aye. Anybody want to do the
I'll
resolution?
make a motion
go,
for
Jerry.
resolution 2021-10 to approve the tax abatement for 601 Randall Street.
Second.
First and second, can we have roll call?
Schmidt,
Aye.
Landite,
Aye.
Teagues,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Koopman,
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Aye. Do we,
These are all 3 here, right?
yes.
I'll keep going. I make a motion to approve resolution 2021-11 to approve the tax abatement for 412 Union Street.
Second.
First and second, can we have roll call?
Koopman,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Landite,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Teagues,
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Aye. Go, Jerry.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2021-12 for the tax abatement of 269 4th Street.
Second.
First and second, can we have roll call, please?
Koopman,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Landite,
Aye.
Teagues,
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Aye.
I got the next one.
Okay.
I make a motion on 2021-13 approval of tax abatement on 40 Pine Street.
I'll second.
First and second, do we have roll call, please?
Jones,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Teagues,
Aye.
Koopman,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Landite,
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Aye.
Like I said, if there's any other questions, you can email me or call me, and I can give you more details on each one of those.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
You.
Shane, do we want to continue on with the department heads? Do you have anything to add here?
Evening, Council. I guess hopefully everyone's read the report that I had included in the packet. There's one addition I'd like to add on there. I guess I didn't mention the ice rink. It's kind of been hit or miss this year. We had some 50-degree days where we pretty much lost it all. It soaked into the ground. So we are getting it reestablished. So I know there's some people asking about if they're going to have that. So we are building it up. Say we've got to do it in layers. So weather this week has been favorable for that. So I don't know if anyone else had any questions on anything else.
No, I just want to say, people really appreciate when those texts go out that have signed up for the text that you're going to do snow removal or
Yeah.
whatever. And so I don't know if that's a big hassle for you to communicate to the police or who does that, but I really think we need to start really relying on that because I think it's working.
Mhm.
And even like when you're doing a cleanup day, like on that Monday or Tuesday after the
Yeah, there's a
snow
couple
on
days there.
Friday, to even send something out there for people to know to get their cars off, I think will make it much easier for your guys not to have to go around.
Yeah, on this last storm here on Sunday, you know, I went through everything around 8:30 and it didn't look like it was justifiable, but then it snowed for 2-3 hours after that, and then it became a moving event. So, you know, I notified my guys at midnight, so there wasn't much time for anybody to even respond to that. So I didn't bother with having them put anything out, but that's kind of a rare case. Most of the time I know in our snowplow policy it says 6 o'clock. Usually we have a notice posted at 6, so, but they didn't cite anybody that was out on the road. I mean, it was a pretty light snow, so sounds like there's another one coming up for this weekend, so
Yeah, every weekend, huh?
seems like it, so.
In addition to streets, it'd be worthwhile also to send out a reminder to property owners that we need to clear their sidewalks.
Yeah.
Shane, you mentioned something about an auction where we come up with 25,000. What was that? The squad cars and fire trucks? What was that all
There's
about?
some of the older fire trucks. We had a very old squad car. It was an airport courtesy car for a while.
Ford Explorer.
That 99 Ford Explorer.
You got rid of that thing?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Before it rusted completely out.
Yeah.
So it was those vehicles. Got the old white Ford flatbed that we had. That was on the auction. I say there was 2 old grass rigs from the fire department.
So what are we doing with the squad car out here, the gray one?
That replaced the van.
Okay, so we still have the van?
Yeah, the van is the new courtesy vehicle at the airport. This was a little bit of an upgrade, I think, for as far as running to different trainings and that for just a fleet vehicle. So just kind of rotated it out. And I guess if there's sometime we want to upgrade this, I guess whenever it works, I guess I don't know if Jason's cars have a lot of value to them. It might be, you know, better off trading too, or getting another car just for that purpose. But you know, it's good to have as far as not paying mileage, I guess. It's the reasoning for having a fleet car here. So
What's the story on the pickup out at the airport? The one that's
there's a pilot that
October tags on it yet?
I guess I haven't paid attention to the tags, but
Tags are outdated.
it's a guy in the cities. He flies down here, and he's got a farm, so he kind of uses it to get around here a little bit. You know, he said if it's in the way, he'll come down and move it, whatever. But that's kind of what's here for. I mean, it's an airport user, I guess.
I probably shouldn't have said that since Jason's here because it needs tags.
I don't pay attention to tags. It's Jason's.
Private property.
So that vehicle is a courtesy car then?
The
In charge?
out there.
Yeah.
The van is a courtesy vehicle. So, the pilot's coming in, they want to go grab a bite to eat or whatever, so they have that option.
How are we covered on insurance for that then?
That, I mean, it's covered under our policy. It's kind of a standard thing that, you know, most airports around us have courtesy vehicles. It actually attracts pilots into airports, you know, having that available for them. So we don't have a rental car or anything here, but you know, it's up to them to put fuel and stuff in it. But you know, as far as it's listed as a courtesy vehicle, so it's covered under our policy, the League of Minnesota Cities. I know Marshall has a couple, I believe, and I know Redwood Falls has 2 courtesy vehicles. I mean, so it's pretty common practice. So League of Minnesota Cities is aware of, I guess, that practice. Does that answer your question?
Sounds good.
Anything else?
Thank you, Shane.
All right, thank you.
City Administrator?
I just want to note that there's a couple department heads that aren't here tonight. There's a specific reason for that. In the past couple of months, I told the department heads to generally kind of stay away, just to keep the numbers down in the room, because of COVID. But I'm kind of giving them more the option, at this point. So you'll get written reports, and if you have any questions, you can always ask. But ultimately, I didn't want you to think that some people are shirking their responsibilities. They're not, and that's the reason for that. I do have a couple of things I want to say partially for the public. One thing you already know, but we did extend an offer, and an offer was accepted for a new finance director, and she's going to start in about 3 weeks. At some future council meeting, we'll have her come as well and introduce you to her as well as the general public, and she can talk a little bit about her background. But we're excited because she has about 13 years of accounting experience and a degree in accounting, and has worked in the private sector as well as in local government, and so I think has a lot of the skills that we're looking for. So it was a good hire, in my opinion. So I do want to give a little bit of an update also on the software conversion, because as many of you know, we purchased some new software to manage our system. You might be wondering, geez, how's that working? And is it working? And I will tell you, I just want to give a brief presentation, and I want to walk through kind of to give you an idea of what this might look like, so you can get a sense for how it operates. But we're probably about 80% done with the conversion at this point. Meaning that we're on the system. With the general ledger, our accounts payable, our payroll for the first time is going to start on this as well. All of our invoice approvals, our cash receipting, a whole bunch of modules. What is not switched over yet is that our utility billing will be, next time around, will be on this system. And we have a permitting module as well that we haven't implemented either at this point, but that'll be happening in March. So we're most of the way through it, and I think it's been challenging in a lot of ways in terms of learning a new system, but we believe that we have a good system at this point. And I want to give you an idea just in terms of one particular thing that we do and the improvements in it. So when we talk about invoice approvals in terms of how things get paid, you get a report of everything that gets paid every single time you have a council meeting. And there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. So the way we used to do it was very paper intensive and very manual. So the first thing what happens, we'd receive an invoice. And then we would route that original invoice by hand to a department head. So literally the piece of paper invoice, in a box, which creates a couple of problems, right? Because we have no tracking as to where that invoice went. We don't know if it gets lost, and sometimes things get lost and don't get paid, and then people wonder where their money is. And we have a requirement by state law that we pay all of our invoices within a certain period of time, and we got dinged on that in our audit for not doing that. So a lot of it, it's just accidents happen, right? Sometimes things get stuck on somebody's desk and they get lost. We had no way of tracking them. They would then be having a handwritten note on them saying, to accounts payable, how to pay them. Then that invoice would be entered into Banyan, that original system. On Thursdays, when we paid all of our accounts payable, we would we'd take the pile of invoices we literally the pile, and then we would run a report in Banyan, and then by hand make sure that all the invoices that are in the pile, hoping that it's the same pile that we entered into the system, match up. And a lot of times they wouldn't, and that would all be done on a hand calculator. We would then print the checks, and I would physically sign them, and they would all have a claims listing attached to them, again, to verify that the check was, actually the run thing. We'd run that claims listing, mail the checks. Then, after all of that was done, we wanted an electronic copy of it, so we would scan it into a program called Square 9, and then file a paper copy of the invoice in a box. That's 10 steps at a minimum just to pay one Excel bill or whatever it happens to be. It took a lot of time, a lot of manual intervention. The way we do it now is we receive the invoice. We immediately scan it into a module as part of our financial system called My Viewpoint. The invoice is totaled and routed to the department head for approval. The department head approves the invoice. Accounts payable then runs a file to export into the accounts payable system. We print and mail the checks. And I'm not even going, and we're going to go to completely electronic signatures as well, so I'm not going to be signing anything by hand either because I'm already approving all of them anyway. So in reality, we've gone from this system where we're constantly having to checking sure we pay the right thing, and to a system where we know exactly what we have and everything is done electronically online. And I want to show you kind of what that looks like so you get a sense for how the department heads can use this as a tool to manage their budgets and make sure that we're having what we have. So you can log into this system, and what you see on the screen here, and I should have pulled this around anyway so you can see a little bit better. But ultimately, this is what the system looks like. You could access this on the web anywhere you want, or from your phone or whatever it happens to be. And so this is my screen, and it's telling me that I have 6 invoices that are awaiting my approval. And so I would click on that, and I'm gonna just grab one of them to kind of show you, how this works. And so this is an invoice that came from Tracy Ace, and I can see a copy of the invoice here, on the right. And I can blow it up if I want to. And you kind of have to know a little bit about what it is, but if it's a department head and you know what's being spent, you should know what these things are. And so I do know what this is, and this has to do with some of the finishing up of the office remodel that we were having in here. And so this is something that would be, and you can see who signed it. PD got this because it was part of the floor that we were finishing up in there. And so I was like, okay, well, I know what that is. So I could prove that, or I could call somebody and say, hey, what is this? I don't know what this is, or whatever. And I can see it on the screen here. And so I know that this is building maintenance. And so actually, it already normally it doesn't pre-populate it here in the bottom. Normally, you kind of have to push this little X here, and it adds a line because you might have an invoice with multiple places where you would put the money. But in this case, it's already populated. So it would be 100. No, wait. That's not right. Sorry. I'm just going to add one. Building maintenance. And so it'll pre-populate some of these things. So it'll be 100 would be, why is it not doing it now? Of course, the time that I would show you would not do it correctly. I'm going to try a different one. It might be because I have a really slow internet connection here. So I can click on that. Yeah, I know account number is required. Well, this figures. I've never had this problem before, and I've done about 200 of these in the last 2 weeks. But ultimately what happens is that it'll populate you put a GL account number in there, which is what you see on your budgets anyway. So it'll be 100 something probably in this particular case. You put the amount in, of 1099, and then you get here to the end, and this is the part that I actually wanted to show you. it's going to be hard to see exactly, but in this particular case, you can see it's already populated for that particular code. It tells you how much you've spent already this year on this particular item, so you know immediately. And then it tells you what your budget is for the whole year. So you can see how much money you have left. And what's different about this than we used to do it is that we would send out a report, to people, once a month, once a quarter, called the tear sheet. And it would kind of tell you how much you have left in a particular budget. But by the time you got that information, you've already spent a bunch of money. You don't know exactly what it is that you have left, because it's probably outdated by the time you do it anyway. And when you're approving an invoice, you have no way of checking to see whether or not you actually have any money in that in the first place. And so this is a tool that does several things. One, it allows us to track our budget in a way that makes sense. Two, it's a lot more efficient because we don't have to rescan these invoices and everything else. And so a lot of times what would happen with Banyan is that I'd say, hey, Peggy, I'm looking for a piece of information. What's this invoice? Oh, well, I'm going to have to go dig it out of a box somewhere, or, we're going to have to track it down, or we don't even know exactly what the invoice number was or where it was. And this would happen all the time with the auditors, too. They would ask us to pull information, and we would have to go and dig it out of some crate somewhere. This allows us to have all this information in one place at one time. So if I want to know, well, what did we send to, what did we spend at ACE? And where did we spend it? And what were those items on it? Because in the old system, all you saw was a number. You didn't know exactly what it is that you were spending your money on. Now we can clearly see what we're spending our money on, which is more transparent. It's going to give us the ability to track our budget a lot better, and it's significantly more efficient in comparison to where we were. And I'm sorry for whatever reason that wasn't pre-populating. It probably has to do with the slow internet connection in here, my guess. But ultimately, I wanted to get you a flavor for how this is a lot different than what we used to do. Questions? Yes.
Does the department head have access to know how much he's got left on his budget, or do they have to come to you to get it?
They have access to it.
Okay.
So the way that it's divided up, so each department has different line items that they can code. So if you're the police department, you can code all the line items in the police department. And so if you've got something, maybe, some fuel, for operating supplies or something, and you're approving an invoice for fuel, and you get to the end and it tells you how much money right here on this line, where it's that you have in that particular line item. So you'll know immediately, do I have enough money to pay, this item? Or if you got something that's going to run over, then we're going to have a discussion about, how we're going to deal with that. And that might require coming to you and asking for more money. It might require a line item transfer where I can move some things around. And this is kind of happening a little bit anyway, because we have this new chart of accounts. And so what we're finding is there's some small little nuances of things that we didn't consider when we put this chart of accounts to. So we're adding some different line items and different accounts, and we'll adjust some of the numbers in there without changing the big number. And ultimately, we're learning kind of as we go along. And this will give us a good tool to then project into 2022. So yes, the short answer is yes. They can see exactly how much they have in their budget before they even approve it. And then when you get to the end, you just hit approve, or you can save it if you want to work on it later. And a lot of times, what happens is you might reject it for one reason or another. Maybe it got routed to the wrong person, or maybe there's something about it that you don't like that you want to look at later, or whatever it is. So it's a pretty slick system in a lot of ways in comparison, particularly where we were before.
Is that some of the stuff the new finance person will be doing, or no?
This specifically, well, we all do it. All the department heads will do this. What we want the finance person to do is several things that I think are real important right off the bat. Number one, they can function as a controller to make sure, because I ultimately want that person to review all this stuff that they go out the door, making sure that things go into the right places, the right line items, tracking our budget, making sure, are we going over this, or do we need more money in this? And some of it's going to be financial reporting for you too. And so I know that when we get to the point where the system is fully integrated and we've got a couple of months worth of data, we're going to start giving you some more clear financial reports. You know exactly what the status of the city is today. And a lot of those kind of, financial projections. I think also this person is going to spend a lot of time working. How do we get more efficient? How do we improve our processes? This is going to, in the long run, is going to take our accounts payable a lot less time. So what does that mean? That means that if we can do that more efficiently, we can move customers through move through the line out here a lot more efficiently. Right now, we have a pretty good line outside for people waiting to get their driver's licenses and things like that. So it's a customer service issue too.
How is that going to put people faster through the line?
Because April can do her accounts payable a lot faster, which means that she can service more customers at the counter. So
April does accounts payable and she does the DMV?
Absolutely. Everybody in there is working the counter in the DMV, and so they have responsibilities. So Krista will do all the utility billing and produce all the bills, but she still has to handle customers at the front counter too. That's part of the reason why we're so overburdened in that department is that they're having to handle those customers. And think about it. I mean, you're sitting there, and someone comes up to the counter and they're like, well, why can't you help me? You're working on something else. They think, rightly so, that they should have first priority. I don't think folks realize that our people have double duty up there, that they're doing multiple things at the same time, servicing customers and handling all of our accounting functions at the same time.
Okay, so all of this brings me into the question I was going to ask before, because I don't know if anybody else is getting, but I get questions as to why does the city of Tracy need now 5 people in the office, and now that we're going to be even more faster at doing things, so people don't understand.
We don't have 5 people in the office. We have 3 right now. We'd be adding a 4th. But what I would say is that it's not about quantity. It's also about the quality. Some of the things that we've had issues with in the past is having a financial plan so that we know we can pay our debt. We had we did a presentation for you, and I think the new council members were there as well, about what we need to do to be able to manage our debt, moving on in the future so that we can pay for these street projects, right? Well, candidly, ABDO didn't get all the information in the report when they did it for you last year, and so I had them redo it this year. That's the kind of thing that a finance director would catch in the first place, so that you don't make those kinds of mistakes. It's a higher level of professionalism, because you're taking someone this person that we've hired has a dozen years of accounting experience and a degree in accounting. Makes a big difference in terms of what you're getting from it, because our financial situation right now is so complicated because all of this debt, and our budget is so tight. We need that level of professionalism. If we had all the money under the sun, it would be easy. We would just spend it, but we don't. So we need to count our pennies.
Well, I don't think that some people have a problem with the fact that they don't think that they need a financial director. They keep saying, why do you need more people in the office? And I'm like, so you can just tell everybody.
I just did. The short answer is that if you want good customer service, if you want to continue having the deputy registrar office, which is going to bring about $80,000 to $90,000 to the city in terms of profit projected this year, then you have to have those people to be able to service customers. And ultimately, the deputy registrar office with the licenses and things like that are essentially paying for almost 2 of those positions in there in reality. So it's not your taxpayer dollars that are paying for a lot of that, it's really that service. Other questions? Good questions. Okay, that's all I have. And I don't know, Jeff, did you want to have Jeff give a department head report too, since he's here?
I thought Yeah,
You're not
I
done?
thought that he was doing that before.
That was just the abatement.
Okay.
Okay, a couple things I want to go over with you. The COVID-19 communications are continuing. There's a second round of CARES grant money. Last time the county had gotten $3 million, which they allotted $2 million to go to the county businesses. This time, and then actually the city of Tracy, I think it wasn't at 165,000, Eric, or right around there. Nothing is going directly to the cities in this round. It is all going to the county, which is only about 500,000. So with what I'm looking at is we got 20% of the money the last time in Lyon County, so I would like to see if we can get 20% this time. 20% of, $500,000. I'd like to see another $100,000 come into the city of Tracy. So I'm working with some businesses to show where they've lost money or revenue in 2020. Actually, it was all the way up to January the 19th of 2021 is where this money's coming from. So there's an application process that goes along with that. Also working with just a few businesses now. There's less in the city of Tracy that have gone with the PPP, which is the payroll protection plan. I don't know how much money we had given out originally with the first and the second rounds of payroll protection plan, but I do know that there was a number of, and I'm not talking a small number. I would say there's 15 of them in here in Tracy that have used that program through the city. Helping Eric with the senior center, community center project. Working on the pool project right now. I want to bring up. We're having an open house, and it's going to be in a couple different areas, so we're all socially distanced. But on February the 6th from 10 to noon, we're having an open house for parents and some students that we can bring in, that hopefully we can get lifeguards. You got to remember, last year, since the pool wasn't open, great, you didn't have that expense, but at the same time, you had the lifeguards that left, that aren't going to come back because they outgrew that or whatever the case may be. But you also didn't recruit the 14 and 15-year-olds coming in. So right now we've got a shortage of lifeguards. So we put out flyers. You've seen an ad in the paper this past week. You'll see another one this week, and then we're going to have that open house because it is
When is that?
Excuse me.
When is that?
February the 6th from 10 to noon. So parents and anybody who is 15 as of June the 1st can apply. So you can be 14 years old up until May the 30th or whatever, and then you can still apply as long as you turn 15. But we're going to be looking for possibly as many as 15 new lifeguards. And you got to have lifeguards or you can't be open. So if anybody's looking for a spare job,
So how does that work then for them youngsters? Do we pay the fee for them to get trained?
we can put the training forward for them, and we can pay for it ahead of time, and then we just get reimbursed just to help them out.
What is the cost of that then?
You know, I $200 sticks in my head, but we have somebody. We've already set up the training dates for this also. We've got somebody coming from, I believe it's Mankato, that comes down and puts these classes on. So that'll be done in the Cool Pool the first week in June.
$200 per student or?
Yeah, it's and I don't know, Diane, is that, I think that $200, I'd have to ask Shannon Benson.
I think that's about right. There's a couple $1,000s in the budget for training for lifeguards. And this is what caught us in a problem last year, is that we had nowhere to train them. And then the trainer that we had hired decided not to do any training that summer because these people weren't opening their pools. And so if we want to have a pool, we have to ultimately train them.
But in the fee that we pay these people to work, that we have to take $200 out of their check.
No, I don't believe that we do that. I
Oh.
believe that we actually just pay for the training.
Okay, I was just trying to get that straight.
Yeah, no, we don't take it out of their paycheck. We pay for the training just like we pay for Shane's training to be our wastewater operator.
So the swimming suits we take out, we'll prorate it on each check
Yeah,
over the
uniforms.
summer.
Oh,
Essentially, yeah.
okay.
So that they're not paying it all up front.
Yeah.
Right.
Then you got to be 16 to teach swimming lessons, so there's a year span in there. There is a number of, out of the, I think it's 19 people that are employed, there's a number of them that are that won't need to have any kind of swimming involved in it. You know, you can sit at the top of the slide and let people down without having a lifeguard license or a. So that's one of the main things I want in there. Any other questions on that?
Are there any classes available at the Y in Marshall?
Well, that's where we're running into a lot of issues right now. Is nobody's really open to have these things going on right now through COVID. So that's where we're lucky that this person from Mankato is coming down. That's what, and she's not going to be here on February the 6th. But then we're going to be able to set it up with anybody that is interested. That hey, here are the dates of when you're gonna have your training. Because again, you can't have a pool open if you don't have lifeguards.
So does she prorate based on how many kids there are in the class?
No, it's a per
the
student.
class.
It's a per student. Yeah.
And then is there any form of commitment that they take this class, we pay for it, that they do work for us?
Yes, it is. There is a commitment there. I don't know if it's ever been called on before. Shannon and I had actually talked about that. It's right now we're looking at getting enough in to get that pool open.
We're going to hire as a lifeguard before we even train them. You know, so we're going to try to open up the pool around June 5th. And I think the training is June 1st and 2nd,
Yep.
something like that. So, it basically we'd only train people that had already agreed
But
to.
that doesn't keep them from saying they're going to start for you June 5th. They take the class and then they say, oh, sorry,
It could happen.
I took
Yep.
a job in Marshall and
Yep,
they're
and
paying
yeah,
me
that sounds a bit like my teenage daughter. Yes, yeah.
So that's why I just want to make sure
yeah.
there's some form of commitment,
Yep.
especially with the parents being at the meeting.
Yep. Well, and it's put into the paper and the marketing sheet that we have that we're actually bringing to Walnut Grove, Westbrook, and to Tracy here. But the fact is parents are welcome. We're hoping some of them show up because it's a good job. It's a good paying job for sitting at the pool, paying attention.
In the past, Jeff, how they work that, for as far as their swimming lesson certification or their lifeguard certification, the city pays for it, but if they leave early, they have to reimburse the city for a portion of it. But if they work the whole year, then the city covered. That's how it did work. I'm assuming that's the same.
I can already tell it's a scheduling nightmare for Shannon just for the fact that you've got basketball camps, baseball camps, baseball, basketball, volleyball.
Softball.
Yeah, everything that's going on. Okay. Other than that, any questions about anything that else was in my report? Besides the date was wrong?
I just want to add one thing. I mentioned it briefly during the budget, and it's in the organizational chart, but I made a couple of changes in terms of putting some of these items, the pool specifically, as well as the community center, multipurpose center, or whatever we're calling it, specifically under Jeff's department as community development, and that's a little bit different because in the past the city administrator had kind of run that, but in reality it needs a home because the city administrator can't stay on top of that stuff and it gets neglected. We can't have that, and so Jeff is really the point person for those, the aquatic center and the community center.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
You know what? I want to make an point so that people of Tracy hear this, because the manager of the liquor store isn't here tonight because she's working there, but I want the city to know that we appreciate them buying their alcohol at the liquor store, because they had just shy of $10,000 sale for a New Year's Eve day. New Year's Eve day. And they're doing a great job out there, so thank you, the city of Tracy, for buying your alcohol here.
The residents.
The residents, yes.
It's not that the city had big parties.
I think the mayor just told everybody to go out and get drunk tonight.
Y'all just go out there and buy some booze, dang it.
I agree.
Oh, you know what else I was going to add to that? Is the Tito, right? Am I saying that right? Tito's Vodka. They supplied the city of Tracy, I just lost 3 pallets of hand sanitizer. So they should get a good kudos for that. It's going to the fire department and to the city and to the Where's it all going? I
School.
lost my thing. School,
Churches, anybody else that needs it.
twin circles, and yeah, it's going to everywhere. So thank you to them.
You have
Okay.
something to do with that?
No. Even though I sell Tito's.
So, okay.
That's all. We have our reports.
So are we ready to move on to resolution 2021-14?
We certainly can, and for 2021-14 and 17, I'm going to have Kyle from ISG come up here. He can talk about, the first one is it's a change order, and this is the final change order for Phase 3A1.
So resolution 2021-14 is the change order number 4 for the Phase 3A1 infrastructure project that was constructed this summer. It included a few items. 2 of them were water services that were, upon excavation during the construction, were found to be, one of them was for an apartment building. The water service that was used there was a larger service size than what was known or planned prior to doing the plans and construction. So this one and one of the businesses downtown area was also a larger water service, so we needed to upsize those water services to feed the apartment building and the commercial business there. So they're both things that it's more of a historical record. If we were known about them before construction, we could have planned for them, and I think the costs and the outcome would have been the same either way had it been, I guess, via change order or part of the original plan. So that was the first couple items. Another one.
Can I stop
Yep.
you there before you get on? One of those, was that for the proposed new laundromat that's no longer going to go there?
It was.
So does that get assessed to the building person, or does the city eat that?
Yeah.
Yes?
It's just assess the property owner.
Okay. Thank you.
One other part of the change order items was related to just a quantity of reconciliation, just to verify, or I guess adjust the contract amount to match what was actually installed. On these projects, we have a line item for each particular thing being done, whether it's sidewalks or curb and gutter or pipe by the lineal foot. So this change order basically just summarizes, or the adjustment was just to kind of document that final quantity that was done and adjust the final contract amount to match that work. So we planned for 100 feet of say certain type of water service pipe. If 105 feet was used, well, we're just adjusting these final quantities just to document that as a record. So and with that, there were a number of line items related to a few of the larger dollar amount ones were related to grading and some of the soil conditions during the project planning. We knew that there was a gas station nearby, or a former gas station. There was also brick pavers that had the potential for contaminated soils and just some areas in this project which we did not encounter any. We have our geotechnical soils testing company come through and do regular testing for density and then take a look at other things as well. And we didn't encounter any of these contaminated soils, so that was money, I guess, not spent there. So that's where I think you see a lot of the larger dollar amount adjustment there, lowering that final contract amount, I guess. And then the last part of it was to adjust the final completion date to a February date here, February 15th, in a couple weeks, just to get final documentation from the contractor. It's kind of their final tax forms, surety for their performance bond, and kind of contractual items, just to document that they're finishing things up and getting us all those forms before the final completion date. It's not, construction was still completed on time and kind of as we anticipated, so this was more of a formality that rural development had asked for us to change or update that date. Any other questions related to our change order here? Nothing to, I guess.
Mayor, if you want, we could move 2021-17, and do that at the same time since Kyle's here, and he can talk about the final pay app too.
Yep. And then the Resolution 2117 is related to just the final pay application. There's those contract adjustments as part of change order 4, as well as the prior approved change orders 1, 2, and 3. The contractor is requesting their final payment, which the majority of that dollar amount is just retainage that we have been holding during the contract. The city pays 95% of the work that's done and holds on to 5% just as kind of a surety and to get through the final closeout. If an item for some reason wasn't completed, the city has those funds to kind of hold and to hold the contractor accountable for finishing the project up. So this is to release that final retainage down to 0 and finish making this final payment to the contractor.
What happens if there's a hiccup in the work, a soft spot pops
Good
up this
question.
coming spring?
Yep, there's still a warranty under, yeah, that's a good point. The warranty period for this project extends through next fall, so next October. It's at 1 year from that substantial completion date when they did finish things up and get all the roads opened up, so it'll go into next fall.
But we have no money held back in case that happens. So we're
that's
hoping
correct.
that they come in on their good faith.
They still hold a performance bond, so there is still a bond backing up the performance. We also did just ask them, as in good faith, they did submit that letter talking about, we still know that there are some sod issues, warranty type issues that we'll be back in the spring to fix up. So it's kind of a good faith letter on their part, recognizing, we still do have a few things, but it's covered by the warranty period and that performance bond.
Maybe there was a dumb question, I guess.
No, that's a very
The
good
watering
question.
of the sod now, is that the responsibility of the homeowner or the Dunning?
Typically, the first 30 days is the contractor's responsibility period there.
Okay.
We send out a letter and ask homeowners, the more help you can give it, the better. If you can let it grow a little bit longer before you mow it so it has a chance to not dry out in the sun. If you can help water it, that's always a help as well. So, but it is the contractor's responsibility, and then we'll take a look at it after that 30-day period and make sure things are looking good, and then it's turned over to the homeowner. The related to Resolution 2021-17, I would also add to this that the resolution should probably state that this is also the final payment is contingent upon receiving final contractor documentation and USDA rural development review as well. Just because that rural development will also want to approve before we release that payment.
I understand that. I mean, we've done that. We did this the last time, actually. They hadn't approved it yet, but we could certainly make that part of the motion.
Sure, I just wanted to, I think that it's still a valid,
yeah, I mean,
point to bring up
ultimately,
here.
we can't pay it until rural development
Right.
says it's okay, so
Yeah.
we won't. But, yeah, I would definitely make that part of the motion that is contingent on RD's approval.
Do we have a motion for that?
I'd go ahead and make that for both of them, I expect, in one. Or do we have to do?
I think you need to do them separately, yeah.
Well, then I'll do the first one of them. 2114, is that it?
I'll second it.
First and second, we have roll call, please.
Okay, Teagues,
Aye.
Koopman,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Landry,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Howe,
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Aye.
Huh?
Go. Said you want to do the other one so you can
No.
go? No?
I'll make a motion for 2021-17.
Second.
First
Just-
and second, can we have roll call, please?
The rural development
Oh, I should've said-
approval.
Yes, I just want to clarify, council member, that your motion for approval also includes that it is contingent on rural development's approval.
Sounds good.
Thank you. For the record.
I should have asked if we have any discussion. I forgot to do that.
It's okay.
Oh, no discussion, can we have roll call, please?
Jones,
Aye.
Howe,
Aye.
Landry,
Aye.
Koopman,
Aye.
Teagues,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cal.
Thanks, Cal, good job. The next two items, Mayor, are related to the multipurpose center continuing discussions we've been having. And I'm just going to kind of go through, them one at a time. So, Resolution 2021-15 is looking at a temporary location for a senior center. There's been some discussion about that. Well, when we're allowed to open back up again, following the ending of the pandemic and we don't have a permanent location, what do we do? And so a couple of weeks ago, we discussed this issue and asked me to put together some options. And there were four options actually that we looked at, and I'm going to go through each one of them in kind so you understand your choices. Ultimately, any of the options will work for us from a staff standpoint. You can choose whichever you wish, and I can kind of outline some of the pros and cons. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's just whatever you feel is best. We talked to the caboose, and ultimately they declined, to use that facility, and so that's not an option that's on the table at the moment. We have the option of the library basement. The advantage of the library basement is that it's new and it's free. The disadvantage is already outlined earlier is that it is in the basement and it would require a wheelchair lift for some people to go up and down, and I know that's been an issue for some folks. Also, we'd probably have some community groups that meet there occasionally that would have to, make sure that they met at different times. The senior portion of it wouldn't be open the entire time that the library is open, but during some of those times it would be booked, and so it could potentially displace or move some people around. The second option is the Eagles Club, and the advantage is that there's no one using that space, and so it will work. It will cost us $300 a month, or $400 if we don't use the kitchen, $400 a month if we do use the kitchen. So there's a cost associated with that. The last option is the Methodist Church. The advantage of that location is it probably feels the most like a senior center, in reality, because it's a nice facility. The disadvantage is that, as I understand it, and I think we might have some people hear from them as well if they would like to talk about this, is that they're asking for $1,000 a month in rental. I didn't have that in your packet originally because I literally just found this out after church on Sunday when Jeff called me, because they wanted to talk about it as a congregation, as I understand it, and so I didn't have that information when I originally sent it to you. So those are your choices, and you can kind of see what the advantages and disadvantages are. With that, I don't know if you guys want to talk at all or no.
It's up to you.
Okay.
If you got some questions to ask, we sure can.
That's fine. I just didn't know because I knew you were here.
That's fine. We just thought we would come and represent the church there. If you guys had questions.
Absolutely.
I got one question, I
Yes.
guess, to you. With that $1,000 a month, does that take care of all expenses, cleaning, disinfecting, whatever? That's just to use it?
No, that was an offer from the city that we understood that they would come in and do just light maintenance as far as a daily through there. As far as garbage and something to go through, that's not complete cleaning, but whatever. If they were going to use that 5 days a week. And then also for the snow removal on the front entrance only would be done by the city.
Okay, thank you.
Like I say, we had a lot of discussion on it at our church. And then yesterday after church, we had a short meeting on it and discussed. There was many, I want to say, opinions that were voiced, both for or against whatever else. So we just compiled like 8 things for it and about 8 or 9 against it. That's what happened yesterday, and yesterday afternoon, I had spoken with Mr. Carpenter, and
Okay, thank you.
Rick, like the Eagles, do they know where we want and what they want, or is there anything down in writing?
No, there's nothing done in writing. What would happen next is that, depending on who you would pick, is that we would go out and sign a lease, and that would have all of the terms on it. But generally speaking, it would include the cost, and we would clean up after ourselves. And that's the extent of it. It would be pretty similar, to what we did with the school district, because they have the 8th grade classes here in the VMC, and the agreement basically says that they get it for nothing, but that they're responsible for, cleaning up after themselves. So they have janitors that come in and clean the bathrooms and the floors and all that kind of stuff. So that's what it would look like, but we don't have it in writing.
On a daily basis, are you talking janitorial business?
Yeah, probably. And I don't think it would be that extensive, honestly.
Well,
We wouldn't be open the entire day. This would just be in the afternoons, because we wouldn't be serving a meal like at this point in any of these locations, most likely in the short run. And so it would be a place where people could gather and socialize, play games. We'd probably have coffee and, light snacks and that kind of thing. So I don't anticipate that we're talking about any, extensive, cleaning by any means.
okay, there's been a difference here. I've had people come up and ask me at the multi-purpose center, they were talking 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning until noon, and then that's when the card players come in.
Yeah, we're only talking about afternoons here, because ultimately we don't have anybody to cook a breakfast, nor do any of these facilities have a kitchen that would allow us to do it. And we don't have a meal provider at this point. And so at this point, all we're talking about is afternoon socializing, cards, games, those kinds of things.
No coffee, no cookies.
Well, coffee and cookies, yeah. I mean, we'll do like I said, coffee and drinks and light snacks and things like that for people. But and we'll have Linda is available to help organize those kinds of things. But it is a good question though, in terms of what we're talking about in terms of the level of service. Because it's not going to be the temporary solution. I don't know what the permanent solution is yet, but the temporary solution will not be the same, as what we've been doing previously. I mean, these facilities aren't open at 6 o'clock in the morning. They don't have a place for us to cook, in any way that makes sense. We don't have the personnel for that either, nor do we have the right licensing, to make that happen, because we had a special license to do those things before at that location. So that's essentially what we're talking about here.
So that means like Linda won't be making like a cake or something at any of these places?
We'll probably have to cater that kind of stuff in, get a cake at Food Pride or whatever, but it would likely be something like that. And we could serve and make coffee, but you'd have to have a food license to be able to make something which the establishment wouldn't be to code, and we don't have that currently for that location anyway.
And this is just temporary then?
This is a temporary situation, yes.
I guess I'm not clear on the custodian part of this thing.
Okay.
Will someone from the city clean up after every day at, say,
Yes.
at 4:30?
Yes.
Okay. That was one of the concerns of the Methodist
That was
Church.
one of the items that came up yesterday. Part of the consensus that we had was, I don't think that some of our seniors that would be dealing from our congregation, they didn't know what was expected or what was going to be expected from it. I don't, unless Ron heard something different, but I heard that from several of our people from the congregation. They weren't exactly sure what was going on with that. So the information that we had was just like just like Eric had just said. It would be afternoons only, no food involved, no breakfast, no anything like that. Like I say, between our committee, between Finance Committee, SPR, and the Administrative Board, that's what was put together. So, with the information that we had. And our understanding was just like you said, they would come through at 4:30, whatever, later in the day, on a daily basis, just to do light, take the garbage, whatever else stuff out. And we didn't have an idea either if that'll be 5 people a day or 20 people a day, or no idea. So we had to just take a stab in the dark and do something. So
the other thing I want to make sure that I add too is that when we're talking about, we've never charged an entrance fee or anything like that, but we have charged for food, and we would do the same thing that we have in the past, collective fee for coffee and cookies or whatever, just so people understand that would be also part of it. I don't know what the cost of that would be. We'd have to figure that out, but my hope would be that the cost would be relatively neutral. we're not trying to make a profit here is what I'm getting at.
So the committee that's been formed here to look at the permanent, do they have a recommendation for the temporary?
No. No, there's no recommendation
Well,
for the
I
committee.
just
on
sit
it.
Last time we talked about the A and the B, remember? And we
Well,
said
I
we're
just
gonna
sit here
work
and I
on
think,
it.
okay, we have this committee, but what we're being asked to choose between is more or less what was brought forward here
Right now.
a long
There's-
time ago.
there's-
And
there's-
it's like, we're not being given any type of,
That's the next item on the agenda. We can have a more robust discussion about where the committee is at. And
so the committee has nothing to do with the temporary.
that's right. That's right. The committee's job is to work on the permanent solution.
Okay.
I guess I didn't know that.
I guess I thought that the committee was part of the whole,
So did I.
part of the big
No.
picture is
If-
I don't think it
temporary.
was.
No, if you go back to the resolution that was passed, it's pretty clear that it was about a long-term solution for a community center, and so there had been some of the people on the committee had certainly expressed concern over these things. Frankly, you've expressed concern over these things too, and Jeff and I have talked about this extensively. We had the same concerns. What do we do, in the interim? And so we were working this problem, essentially in parallel to the committee. But ultimately, we felt that given some of the discussions that have been happening recently, that it was important to bring this to you now. Like I said, this is not something that's going to happen immediately, but we didn't want, and I'm just going to be transparent about one other thing too. We didn't want people to get bogged down in this idea that, oh my God, what are we going to do if we can open up again in 2 months? We need to just hurry and get this thing done so we can get this moving forward. It becomes a distraction for the community and the committee when we're talking about the long-term solution if we don't know what the short-term solution is. And so we want to remove that distraction so that we can focus on the long-term solution.
So, Eric,
Yeah.
getting back to the temporary,
Yep.
are we going to, say a 30-day notice, or what do you got planned?
Yeah, we'll have to have some kind of notice in there. We'll probably do it on a month-to-month basis. It will be a very simple agreement. And, in all of these cases, well, obviously in the library, we wouldn't need to do a lease with ourselves. But in the other two cases, we're not talking about a situation where people are using the space a lot during the day anyway. So I don't think that this will be very difficult to put together.
I wouldn't think it would be either, I
No.
guess. It should be pretty good, and if we ever get something figured out on the long-term solution, it's not gonna happen in a week's time or month's time
Yeah.
or whatever, so
Yeah.
we'll have plenty of time to talk to them, say, hey, in 30 days, we'll probably be out of here, or 45 days, or
Yeah.
whatever, I would think anyway.
I don't think that that's going to be an issue, at the end of the
Shouldn't be.
day.
I wouldn't think it would be.
So ultimately, we'll have a lease, and we'll outline those terms. The most important thing is that we're going to clean up after ourselves, and how much are we going to pay, and that's kind of up to you in terms of how you view it. So that'd be my question to you at this point is, of those three options that we outlined, you kind of have an idea of what they cost and the pros and cons of each. What are your thoughts, and then we can move forward.
Let me ask you a quick question. So on the Eagles, was it 300 out the kitchen or 400 if we use the kitchen?
That's
right?
correct.
So like if we use the kitchen, can they start doing their pancake thing to like start
No,
money up? No?
because we don't have the appropriate food licensing for that.
But the Eagles does.
You have to have both a person preparing it, having a license, and the facility has to have a license. And so when Carla did it, she had a food license.
But like when they used to do the pancake thing, they just had volunteer people do it.
I don't know about before volunteers.
And that was discovered that they didn't have the appropriate license, which is now in place.
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't aware of that situation.
Beg for forgiveness and
Yeah.
move
Easier
forward.
to
doing
do
it
grant
correctly.
forgiveness than get permission. That kind of
You're opening up an old wound.
Not always.
You're opening up an old wound.
It worked in the
Go talk to a few bars that opened during COVID and see what their begging for forgiveness is doing.
Well, personally, the basement of the library would obviously be the cheapest, but I think we've already told the seniors we really weren't going to go down that route when we talked about the second floor. At least the second floor, they could jump out and stand a chance. The basement, you're stuck. And so I really don't know if we want to go that route just because of money. I think we've kind of given our word to the seniors that we're taking their safety into consideration. So I personally want to just remove that off of the consideration here.
I'll go with that also.
I appreciate your opinions there, Sherry, on the library, lower level of the library. And I want to thank the Methodist Church for being willing to consider this arrangement, being a temporary host for the senior center. But I guess I have a little different opinion about the lower level of the library. I went down and looked at it, and to me, it would be it's really nice down there. I think it would be a suitable location temporarily. I don't see what would be, but I think that it would be worth trying for 30 days or 60 days and just see how it works out. I realize not everyone is thrilled with the lower level, and I heard some comments about the lift being slow. But I personally don't think, I think if people use that lift, they'd be acceptable to them. For example, at Tracy Lutheran, the elevator that we have in there, it's very slow, but there's a reason it's slow. It's nice and steady, and I haven't heard anyone ever complain that it's too slow. So I just, I want to do something that satisfies and meets the needs of our older citizens as well. But I thought the library, lower level of the library was nice and would work really well, and I think it would be worth a try for 30 days or 60 days. Anyone else?
Well, I got to go back to Jerry and the safety factor involved here. We were talking about the second level. Okay, we're sending them upstairs, now we're sending them downstairs. Now, what have we changed here? I mean, we're doing the same thing to them. So I couldn't go along with it. I'm sorry.
Up to you, Cool.
What's their opinion on the other two options?
What's our opinion?
No, what's the seniors?
I honestly, we did not ask anybody on the committee specifically, if that's what you're asking, so I can't say that I know.
Because I know they said that they don't want to go to the basement of the library. So I want to, kind of take their consideration too.
Are we trying to make a motion on all this?
Yeah, that's what the resolution will be.
Okay.
Yeah. The resolution will basically direct me to sign a lease or move the temporary location in the library one way or the other.
I guess I'm going to ask Jeff, are we giving you enough information here to make your decision with the church? I guess I'm confused.
From the replies that we had yesterday, no. Not for 100%.
Even those people that were in favor of it, or said they were in favor of it, every one of them except for, if there's 2 people, there was, except for 2 that blatantly said just yes, more information was needed. A signed lease, a proposal, a cost, what will be done, what won't be done, and so it's been pretty open-ended. And that's been the frustrating part.
Yes.
What will be done, what won't be done hasn't been put down, and that's been
wailing and gnashing of teeth.
Is that where you come with
Because-
a fairly large figure then, or high figure, not large?
That was their recommendation between finance and then several people's recommendations to start at that dollar amount. They're starting at a dollar amount they threw out, so
So that's negotiable then, you're saying?
Well,
depending on
depending on- yeah.
what the expectations are.
If we
yes.
started, if we would do the cleanup and started at $50, that would be negotiable, or that's not?
No.
Well, you
I'm
said just
just telling you-
negotiable, so I threw one out.
I'm just telling you yes or no, because
And the other part of the thing is that facility was built for an intermittent or an occasional use. And now you're going to be using it daily or 3 times a week for 6-8 months. Well, now it's not, it hasn't been built or engineered for that. So that was a considerable more expense than what it was intended for. Not that the church doesn't want to have the outreach, not that the church doesn't want to be charitable to help you out, but it's open-ended, no commitment has been the real bugaboo with the whole thing.
That was the general consensus from yesterday. We had over 40 people wrote down what they thought, and about, other than just 2 or 3 was, so it was about an hour and a half to figure all that mess out after we got done. So I understand where you guys are at. You guys are in a tough situation no matter what with the seniors. I get that. You know, the church from a missional standpoint, absolutely.
We love to open the door,
Yep.
but we got to be realistic when 6-8 months down the road, doors need replacing, carpet is wore out. Not that we don't want to do that, but we can't be footing the whole bill for it either.
And the same question came up on 2 or 3, just like Pam's question was with like the kitchen area. We don't have a commercial kitchen. I mean, because we were asked that same thing. I was asked, are we going to start pancakes? No, not there. No, that's a down the road thing. It's not going to happen in this temporary spot as far as we're concerned. And I know that there was several. Ron was there yesterday for church too. I think he would concur. There were several people that were asking questions. Several of the older people were asking questions, specific questions. A couple of them we could answer, and most of them we couldn't. So.
Well, this isn't a topic that I want to keep kicking down the road because we have we have to make a decision on this.
We got to put this to rest.
We do.
And
I was going to say.
We're not going to make everybody happy.
No, and before I was thinking, the Methodist Church is a nice location. Not location, but it is a nice facility there until you come up with that price tag. So then I'm back to the Eagles.
And we realized that when we put that together. I know that seems like a lot of money. I get it. But we're looking at it also from the standpoint, several of them commented on insurance and what's our responsibility. Well, I'm assuming that the city, because if they were leasing it or renting it, whatever you call it, they're going to cover that as far as insurance too. But that's why they were trying to limit it to the front door, which is handicapped accessible. Because our back kitchen door is not handicapped accessible, and office door, all the rest is not either. So
I'll address the insurance question. We have the standard, of course, liability insurance that would cover anything associated with anybody there, or any damage that was done, caused by us. Ultimately, we're not going to be responsible for their insurance on their structure, nor would you ever as a renter. So yes, we are fully covered.
But my other question about the Methodist Church, and I know that people have brought that up, is that, like, what happens one day when they have a funeral and then they can't meet for cards? It's like, but then are they okay being at the Eagles, being in a bar setting?
one of my questions here, Council Mayor, is does the Eagles know what they're getting from or getting into for $300 a month? Have we explained this to them, what we were expecting?
Yes, we have. Jeff, why don't you come up and talk a little bit more? You talk to some of these people more directly. Yes is the short answer. Everybody has explained these things.
Yeah, we've been very open.
You can ask
Except the
questions
Methodist Church.
infinitum.
Well, a couple of the questions that they asked, though, were pretty simple questions. Who's going to clean, since they don't have somebody cleaning the sidewalks out there, who's going to clean the sidewalk every day? Well, we'd already, when we talked about the caboose at one point, it was our agreement with them that we were gonna come down there and make sure it was open for them. So I was able to answer that. The only question that I couldn't answer last night was whether there was the insurance. I told Jeff on the phone last night, I said, I'm not gonna answer that without Eric. And he just answered that question where we have the general liability and we would cover that, but we're not gonna cover anything with the structure. So really, there's we can nitpick on every one of the locations. And I don't know which one of you just said a little bit ago, not everybody is going to be happy. I don't care what you do, and this is just me on my soapbox here, but you gave it to me, you're not going to make everybody happy. Some people aren't going to be happy with being in the basement of the library, even though the place is very nice and underused. The Methodist Church is right up the street. It's a little bit expensive, but it's very nice. But not everybody's going to want to go to the Methodist Church. The Eagles is essentially it's a steak night, but it is a bar. You're going to have people that are going to say, I don't want to go there because it's too much of a bar location. So we're looking for a temporary location here. This isn't something that's permanent. It's just something that we can get by. We don't even know. There's a chance that we don't need a temporary place now until the middle of summer. There's no direction right now. As slow as the vaccines are coming out, there's a chance that we're not getting into the seniors into a place until July 1st.
That's right. I think that's likely, actually, to be candid.
You too, Jerry?
But keep in mind why we're doing this.
Oh, yeah.
We're doing this because, there's been some question and criticism from the community that what are we going to do if? And, these are, honestly, it's a small town. There's only so many places we can go, in reality. Other than maybe another church, there isn't really any other option in town for a space like this. So, you've got to decide, is saving $700 worth the loss of atmosphere at the Eagles Club? If you don't want to, and I hear most of you saying you don't want to put it in the basement because of concerns about going up and down an elevator, but that leaves the other two options, in reality. Is $700 a month worth the additional atmosphere and the accessibility of the Methodist Church? The other option is that you could ask me to go back and try to negotiate that price down. If you would prefer to do that. We don't have to make the decision tonight. I was hoping to make the decision tonight so that we don't have to keep kicking the can down the road. But ultimately, that's what it boils down to. So those are kind of your choices.
Well, personally, I'd love to use the library basement, but I don't think people would go for that. So, I know it's beautiful down there, but I think just for the overall ease of use and everything, the Eagles Club is the place to go. Personal opinion.
Unless you can negotiate with the Methodist Church for the same price of the
Well,
Eagles.
but I look at the Eagles Club too. There's a pool table there if people want to play pool. Yeah, it's gonna cost you a few dollars. The bathrooms are nice. They're wide open. There's plenty of tables in there. There's plenty of space. The only part that really is a bar is when you're up at the bar.
And you really don't notice that.
And it's not like it's a big, huge bar sticking out in front of you.
I don't think they have the liquor bar or liquor.
Well, they do, but it's a 15-foot area that's the bar. The rest is all tables, open area.
Okay, well, I'm ready.
Personal opinion.
Well,
do you think
if we don't have to do anything about it to get it going right away, let's go out and talk to some of these people and see what their opinion is. Let's do some homework.
But we're going to do that for the next 6 months.
No, we won't. No.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the Eagles or the church. Which would you got A and B? Which one do you want? Tell me, give me your answer.
And you're going to go out, you're going to find 50 people that say I want the Eagles, and you're going to find 50 that say I want to go to the church.
But you might only find 30 and 80.
Wow.
Let's do some homework. Let's not just sit in our chairs. Let's go out and talk to the people, see what they want.
I'll make a motion that we do the Eagles Club as the temporary location for the senior center.
Are we doing that with the kitchen or without?
Without the
Since I don't have a license.
Without
I'll
the
do it
kitchen.
Without, yeah.
So they would only be able to have coffee and cookies. Is that what we're saying here?
Or
Yes,
just
correct.
some kind of dessert that gets brought in.
Yep.
And the hours are,
It's going to be in the afternoon. We're considering something like 1 to 4, but that's a little flexible.
I'll second Dave's motion.
First and second, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Koopman,
yes.
Tell,
Aye.
Shantz,
Aye.
Landeck,
Aye.
Teagues,
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Aye.
Thank you, council. That helps. I realize that that's tough sometimes to have that discussion, but I thought it was a great discussion. I really enjoyed listening to you hash it out. The next item is related to the long-term solution. So we have communicated to you in the past that, and Shane has expressed some concerns about our ability to go get actual costs for some of these choices that we have for a long-term solution for the senior center, multi-purpose center, community center. And your resolution that you passed last December, directs us to get some costs. The committee wants to get some costs, and we're at the point where it's difficult to evaluate these choices without knowing what things cost. So, without being able to kind of do these things ourselves, we're essentially in a situation where we have to, hire some professional help to give us some guidance on this. And we had a conversation, initially with Kyle from ISG and said, hey, can you help us out? Because ISG does these kinds of things in terms of architecture and building, structural engineering and things like that. And he said, sure. And so I had a conversation with a couple of architects from ISG on Friday. They're actually working on a project in South Dakota right now for a, community center. And so this is the kind of thing that they do. And I explained the situation to them. It was actually kind of an interesting conversation because I think when they were talking about the seniors and the desires of the seniors sound an awful lot like that community too. And so these are not new problems, and I think they understand how to address some of these problems. But ultimately, I said, look, we've got this situation here. What can we do? How can you help us? Come to some kind of conclusion. And I wasn't sure, to be honest with you, what it would cost or what it would entail or something. And they said, what we suggest is that we can give you a report, 2-3 pages, that kind of outlines, first of all, some cost ranges for something that you might do, whether it be a remodel or a new build or an addition. And in addition to that, kind of, some general space planning ideas. Like, people have asked the question, how much space do you actually need for seniors? In terms of how many? How much space do you need for a community room? There's a lot of numbers that have been thrown out, but, it'd be nice to get a sense for, square footage and things like that, because that's going to drive our cost. The bigger the building is, the more it's going to cost. I said, wow, that would be great. I said, what does that cost? And I was pleased because they said, we think we can put together a report like that for $5,000 or $6,000. And I think that's, considering you've already authorized, up to 144, I think $5,000 or $6,000 to give us good information that we can't produce, which is going to help address some of the questions that people have that we can't answer, is money well spent. I didn't know that actual cost when I put the resolution together because I just didn't want to spend. The resolution you have in front of you basically authorizes me to spend up to $10,000, but ultimately it's going to be less than that. And I have the authority as the city administrator to spend that money, but this is something that is of community interest, and I want to make sure that this is the direction we want to go, from you, before we do it. And so, ultimately, what's going to happen is that they'll look at they're going to come out next week and look at some of the options, new build locations, remodels, things like that. And We're going to tour them around the city a little bit for a couple hours, talk about the spaces, and they're going to evaluate it, come back with some cost ranges and some space planning ideas for those various options. And that's what we're going to get for that. And I think it will help us quite a bit. I think from that information, we can then maybe narrow it down to an option or two, or not. I don't know what the committee is going to do ultimately, but it will help, drive that discussion a little bit better. So that's essentially what I have to offer about that. So I know you have a question, council member. And what we're asking for is, passing this resolution, authorizing us to go ahead and work with ISG on this.
So would their plans kind of come back? It's like, well, if you built new on this site, it's going to cost you $300,000. If you remodel this, it's going to cost you $250,000.
Yeah, but it probably more like ranges.
Okay.
This to this kind of thing.
300 to 350
or
type
whatever.
thing.
Yes.
Pick a number.
Pick a number. Yeah, it'll be something like that. They believe that the new build is probably one of the easier ones to do because those are pretty standard. The problem with doing a remodel or an addition is you always run into things that you don't expect, right? And so to a certain extent, that one's a little bit more tricky from their perspective. But yes, that's essentially what it's going to look like.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that, he's sitting here enough and he can answer that, but the business that the city of Tracy does with your company already, is that possibly we could negotiate that a little bit down some?
You're a negotiator tonight.
Well, we pay a fair amount of money already to your company.
Yeah, that's why we're only going to be charged $5,000 for this, to be honest. This is a deal. I'm telling you, this is a steal.
For somebody to do that for that, yeah.
So let me ask you this. Are we talking the three options here? We're talking remodel, new structure, or the VMC? Are we still talking the VMC here?
Yeah, that's one of the options that the committee directed me to include on the list, and that's on the list.
Okay. I have been approached about this VMC to the point where I'm tired of it. I'm going to make a motion here that the VMC building for further consideration be removed from this discussion. That's my motion.
I would second that.
I disagree wholeheartedly, but
We're not into discussion yet. Are we?
Personally, I think before I make a decision, I'd like to see all the options on the table. I really would. I'd like to see the remodeling the old liquor store be included in the discussion. I just want to see all the options that the committee has looked at. I'm not saying that I favor one or the other, but I can't make a decision. I don't want to make a decision without all the options in front of me.
When you say remove the VMC, are you talking any type of the VMC? There's different options even with the VMC. There's the build, something in the middle. There's doing something where the police station is. There's doing something.
They were talking
at the
about
west
adding
end of
on to the
building.
west side of the building.
Yep.
I heard that discussion. In the middle, I've heard that discussion. I also heard that we were also going to do something to the city hall here that's going to cost 1 million, and that's going to be piggybacked onto the VMC. Is that true?
Council member, this is the problem with gossip and hearsay.
I think it was in the paper.
And I'm going to tell you what I said was that Shane and I had worked on a report that showed that there was $1.2 million in deferred maintenance in this building. And one of the advantages of potentially adding on to this building is that you could take care of some of the maintenance issues at the same time, such as HVAC. Didn't say we were going to do $1.2 million worth of improvements to this building.
I must have dreamed that.
No, you weren't there.
I think I read it in the book.
But that was part of
Yeah.
the deferred maintenance on this building.
It could be the perception of how it was read by you or by whoever talked to you or whatever. Because I do remember the 1.2 of deferred maintenance number being out there and everything, but I guess I did not, my perception was that that wasn't going to be piggybacked onto the cost of this. That some of it would maybe overlap,
Right.
but it wouldn't be piggybacking the whole thing onto the cost to make the dollar amount go away from the deferred maintenance. That's, I guess, not how I perceived it, and I can only speak for myself, but I would never vote for something like that. I mean, that's just, those are two different things. I think we're kind of getting off a little bit, but I think what we need to do for you, if you're going to go to INS to have some drawings or whatever, or plans or designs, whatever.
Are they even doing designs yet, or are they just give us a 3 pages?
This won't be a design. That's correct. It will be kind of a analysis of cost and some ideas about what space you would need to do that. But it would not be a design by any means. No.
I guess the one thing, and we'll have to move on with the vote on your motion, but I'm taking this just still as the discussion. With the VMC, the one thing I would want if we did still keep that as a consideration is what I've heard from a lot of the seniors is they want something that is specifically for them. That if it is at the VMC, it's not going to be crossed over where the kids are coming in or whatever, that it is a definite separate space that's going to be primarily for the senior center, the seniors. And I guess I would want that included in their dollar amount, that there is some space that is just for the seniors.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's 100% accurate, and I've heard that from a number of seniors. And actually, that was one of the specific things that the committee agreed to. There's a couple things that the committee actually agreed to in the last meeting. One was they wanted to do something downtown, and that limits our options too, and that's good because it narrows it down. And the second one is there was general agreement that when we build a space, that it includes a space specifically for seniors, and only for seniors. And so I would say that that's the direction that the committee is going. And because that's the direction that the committee is going, that's certainly our direction as well when we work with, ISG or whomever on this project, that there would be a dedicated space for seniors.
The thing that we got to kind of keep in mind too, the school is using this facility, and you had made the mention yourself at 3 o'clock when the music turns up, the balls start dribbling.
Yeah.
It gets kind of nerve-wracking.
That's one of the disadvantages.
How would they be able to get that senior facility so far away or so insulated so they don't hear that?
That's a good question. I'm not an architect, George. I can't answer that question.
Okay.
I see. There's several. There are advantages and disadvantages to all of these things, right? One of the disadvantage of the VMC is what you just described. Is that, well, how do you handle that noise situation? How do you handle the parking situation? What about the walking and the entrance and all of this other stuff? Those are the disadvantages. There are advantages to it that we've outlined. What we don't have on the table at this point is all the information to all of these things. And frankly, the biggest piece of information we don't have is the cost of any of this stuff. And so at the end of the day, I would never recommend that you take options off the table at this point because, first of all, the committee wants to look at options, and so you're kind of telling the committee that they don't matter. And second of all, I just don't think it's a good practice at this stage of the game to do that. That's my opinion, and you didn't ask for it. And it's probably not prudent for me to give it in this context, but I'm going to anyway.
I think if they did do something here, they just would have to make sure that they have enough sound barriers or whatever to make sure that they don't hear that.
Is that something that ISG can look at to see?
And if that's the case, you're doing a new build.
I think
he's nodding.
Anyway?
That's definitely something we can take into account. I mean, I think knowing that that's a question or an issue is certainly something that.
That's the biggest, one of the bigger ones that
We're fully, trust me, fully, abundantly aware of the concerns that people have with regard to parking and noise. I have walked over there myself and listened to them playing basketball to try to understand exactly what the issue is, you know? Kyle knows too, because he was sitting here in a meeting at 3 o'clock this afternoon when they were playing basketball. So we know all that. You'll have to weigh those considerations, you know, as you weigh these options. In the end, it may not be a good choice for you. You know, I don't know. We're just trying to collect the information so that you can make good choices. That's it.
I think we've got to let the professionals do their job. And they know our concerns. They know we want a separate facility or area for seniors that they can call their own. They know about the noise issues. You know, let's just trust them to develop the options and tell us the costs and drop some good plans for us, whether it be at the VMC or a new building or remodeling something else.
So do I have this straight then? We're going to try and get prices on remodeling new structure in the VMC. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That, with all that being said, I would like to pull back my second on that and see what happens. Can I do that?
Can you do that?
You can. Yes, you can.
Thank you.
So there's no second?
And the motion would die without a second.
So then I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-16, directing our city administrator to hire a professional to assist with the cost estimates of the potential community center, senior center, whatever you want to call it.
Second.
First and second, any discussion?
With the price of $5,000 to $6,000.
Up to 10,000, as it says on the motion.
That involves all three options here. Okay.
Roll call, please.
And is it only 3 options, or, I mean, reading the committee's minutes, there's
Yeah,
more than
there's
3.
really 3 options on the committee at this point. You know, one is some kind of addition on the VMC that is not well defined, but we'll have to narrow that down a little bit. Most likely in addition, it would have to be on the first floor. The second one is a new build. That's pretty straightforward. The location might be by the liquor store or somewhere else downtown. And the third option is a remodel of a building. Now, there's really kind of a couple of choices that Jeff and I are contemplating at this point. One is the old Super Value building that, you know, George had brought up that idea in the committee the last time. The other one we also want to look at, it's a smaller space, but I'm going to ask them to look at it is what was going to be the laundromat and is now not going to be the laundromat, you know, downtown. That space would probably only work just for a senior center solo, you know, if you just put a senior center but not a full-blown community center. So the option for that on a remodel would be, you know, if you just did a smaller kind of situation just for seniors. So those are the thoughts that I have rattling around in my head, but I'm not married to any of those necessarily at this point. We'll probably have to get some guidance from the ISG people a little bit as to whether those options work. And Jeff and I need to tour some of these facilities this week as well.
Well, because what needs to be taken into consideration, and I don't mean to insult any of you guys here, is, because when you mentioned that right away, the first thing is parking.
Yeah.
You know, where is there going to be parking?
Yep.
And so I don't want to spend our $5,000
or $2,500.
Yeah, $3,000 on a place that we know we're going to be throwing out the window right away.
okay? Sometimes it's good to have those options on the table, and I already made an impassioned speech based on Seth's comment that we should keep all the options on the table. I hate to go back to the limiting options.
I'm just saying, I don't know if that's the building we get the price tag on for remodeling.
There's
other buildings for remodeling.
There's some limited choices downtown because the committee does want to have it downtown. And so, you know, the other things that we had considered were the Hollywood Ballroom, for example. And we thought, oh my God, that's too big. You know, that's just too expensive. So to a certain extent, some of those things kind of mentally been eliminated by the committee. George, you were there. I mean, am I characterizing this, you know, what do you think?
I guess at this point, I don't know what to think.
All I know, it's dragging on.
Yeah, well, it's going to drag on, Ron, I guess. There's no doubt about it. But maybe by spending the money to have these folks come and they look around the community, maybe something will jump out at them and say, hey, we could do that.
And honestly, that's kind of what our approach was going to be. We were going to walk them through the old multipurpose center, you know, to get a sense for what we had, and then walk through this building and then a couple of other choices. And they may say, you know what, this stuff isn't going to work for what it is that you want. We think you should do this instead. You know, it's kind of open-ended, but the intent is to try to narrow it down for people and provide some information. Because we hear the frustration that things aren't moving. We're trying to get things to move at this point, ultimately. Because if we don't get over this hump, we'll never get there, ultimately. So that's what we're attempting to do here. So I do appreciate a little bit of open-endedness and flexibility on this because it is a bit ill-defined, but I think we'll get to more clear definitions.
I'll say let's just move to the vote. As long as you promise me you'll work with this committee.
Darn right I'll work with the committee.
So that we at least can say there is a committee. It's not a one-man show or anything like that. It's the committee that's going to be working with this.
You know, the interesting...
Towards the Jeff ultimately,
yep.
Right?
Yep.
So you're not off the hook here. Let's just move forward to get...
I'm going to say one other thing in full transparency. You know, from my perspective, it's a difficult position because committees, by nature, move slowly. The only way to make them move quicker is typically to say to one person, move them forward quicker. Well, that falls on me or Jeff at the end of the day. And so, whether it's a one-man show or a committee show, if you want it to move quicker, we can make it more of a one-man show. If you want it to be more inclusive, we can slow it down. I mean, that's the way this is going to work. And that's how, if you want people to come together as a group, it's going to take a little bit of time. So I appreciate your patience. I know it's difficult. We'll get there.
Is this something you feel you need to, I mean, ultimate for the final part you need to, is this something you need to be in on the first door? Turn it over to Jeff, let him run with it, and then come back to you and say, these are our options. I'm not saying you're not doing a good job. Don't take this the wrong way. I'm not saying you're saying too much, but
No.
sometimes you do.
No, I think I'm the right person for this.
I just wonder if...
I've said a couple of things to Jeff, and I'm just going to be clear about this. I'm not from this town, okay? And that means that not everybody in this town, or maybe most people in this town, don't trust me. And I've had this conversation with Jeff, you know, a little bit earlier, and I said, Jeff, you know what, I really need you because you are from here, okay? And I don't have a problem with that. But in terms of being able to evaluate these choices and lead group and facilitate people and reach people to consensus, I've been doing that for 20 years. And so I think that I can do that, you know, and if I felt like I couldn't, I'd quit.
Well, you don't want to do that.
I'd quit this assignment.
I just think we need to go through the process that we talked about a couple months ago, and we set February as a date to get a general idea from the committee.
Yeah.
So let's approve this, get it done,
Yeah.
and let's go from there.
Bingo.
I agree.
So let's...
All right, roll call. All right. Teigs.
Aye.
Koopman,
No.
and Schmidt,
Aye.
Tell,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Landay,
Aye.
and Mayor Corman.
Aye.
So we'll have something by the end of February.
We do have a closed meeting tonight, Mayor. That's our last item on the agenda.
I have nothing for the open portion of the meeting, or Mayor.
I'm sorry?
I have nothing for the open portion of the meeting, Mayor.
Okay.
May I say something before I leave?
Sure.
Thank you for the committee, and then thank you for all the chairmen, everybody, the mayor, everybody else for just considering for the
Thank you
Methodist
for
Church.
Well, thanks for talking about it.
Nope.
You never know, we may come back.
It ain't a done deal, I can
Who
tell you
knows?
that, but whatever, that's fine.
Yeah.
You think whatever you wish, but that's fine. Like I say, thank you very much from the Methodist Church.
Thanks
So,
for committing.
no, and thank you for Eric and Jeff both too
Thanks, Jeff.
for talking with us. So, thank you.
Oh, I'll make a motion to adjourn the
No,
What are they thinking? Portrait.
Yeah, a new build is going to probably be.
The old VMC.
The last of all. Who tells us?
That's why I didn't hear.
Yeah, well, I was just